Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Shop and Chivalry podcast. My guest today, Jeff Mortenson, running for Alderman Ward 5, yes?
Ward 5, yes,
okay,
correct.
Excellent.
Ocean Springs.
There you go.
Got to throw that in there for the city.
Yep. So, Jeff, tell us about yourself.
All right. Very simple. I'm a husband.
Yep.
Been married over 40 years to the same woman.
Well done.
Yeah. Well, for her, it is. It's a well done thing, yes. I'm a father. I've got two boys. You know both of my sons.
Shout out to Ben and Patrick.
Absolutely. Good young men. They grew up here in Ocean Springs, and they've done great things with their lives. I'm a veteran. So spending 14 and a half years active duty. In 94, I was offered an early buyout during the drawdowns.
Yeah.
And so I took it.
Sure.
Knowing that I had the capacity to do other things. Let's just put it that way. Being a cop in the Air Force was great. It was a great career. I got to see the world. Yeah. Well, one country, but other countries from
More of the world than most people from Ocean Springs. How about that?
Correct, yeah. Spent almost 7 years of my life in Turkey.
Oh, nice.
2 tours in Turkey. When we came home, we had the ability to choose anywhere in the nation we wanted to move to. That was the deal. Yeah. They'd put us anywhere we wanted to go. And it was really no discussion about it. We were coming to Ocean Springs.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. So parlayed all of this, made a nice career, almost 20 years in IT, doing support, network engineering, things like that. I went back to teaching. How about that? Yeah. And so you teach over at Keesler, right? I teach on Keesler. I started out as a Cybertrans instructor. Got promoted about 2 years after I started there. Okay. To an instructor supervisor position. Nice. So you can those that work in that environment, you know that's not an easy thing to do. No. You actually have to be a challenged individual and driven to get those positions. Sure. You got 100 instructors, you got one instructor supervisor.
Right. No, that definitely makes sense. So you were in Turkey during the golden years of Turkey, where you could go off base.
Absolutely.
And you could spend time in the alley, and you could buy the Hulu shotguns.
Oh yes. Yep. We were there. We enjoyed it. We actually didn't want to come back, but the Air Force decided.
Yeah, you can't stay there for
can't
long.
Stay there forever. So
Adana's the city out there, right?
Adana, yes.
Yeah, Adana. Yeah.
So they wanted to send me to North Dakota.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
I mean, it just makes sense. You know, you're in a paradise place in the Air Force, and we're just going to put you at the worst place that we can possibly think of.
Yeah. Did you do like the Castle by the Sea and the Heaven and Hell?
We did all of those.
While you're in Turkey?
We did all that.
Yeah.
My first
a lot of history out there.
Oh, absolutely. My first tour, the 7 churches. Okay. I was at a small MUN site in Turkey. It's a munitions support squadron. We were actually on a Turkish air base providing American support for our materials there. Sure. So the Izmir was the closest base that we had. They had a very big chapel system set up there and established. And they set up lots of tours for anybody. So we used to sign up for those, and we'd drive to Izmir and we'd catch the tour to the 7 churches or maybe 1 or 2 of those churches of the Book of Revelations and see what they look like.
That's amazing.
It was pretty cool. Yeah. Easter service at Ephesus.
Okay.
The book of Ephesians, talks about Ephesus. We actually had Easter service at the stadium in Ephesus.
Those are really, I think, the golden years of military travel, I think. So my dad, he spent time in Egypt, in Greece. He went to Israel. He's got bottles of water from the Jordan River. My brother was baptized in that water, actually. Nice. And so obviously, I mean, this is heating water. It's like 30, 40 years old, so they had to boil it, but hopefully it didn't lose any touches of divinity in the boil. Yeah. But really, really awesome times. Obviously that area is not as accessible as it is today.
No, today the world has changed.
Sure.
And it's not for the best. It's really a shame that we have that situation occurring
where we don't have access to that old, wonderful human culture, so.
Well, travel was history. So much easier back then. You didn't have to worry about your plane getting blown up.
Sure. I mean, probably the Khobar Towers, that was a big event. The USS Cole. Well, there was a bombing of the Twin Towers in New York at one point, right?
Right.
In the early 90s.
It was actually down in the basement area.
The basement, that's
right.
right.
They were trying to mess up the substructure to cause it to fall in.
Yeah.
You had that, and you had the 747 with the military guys that flew over Lockerbie, Scotland that got blown up.
That's right. That's right.
That Beirut, all of those things back in the 80s kind of defined, anti-terrorism the way that we knew it.
Yeah.
And fascinating things that we studied and that the doctrine that we learned as a result of this actually shapes the way the military acts today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if we can bring it back home.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, let's bring it back home. So you're running for Alderman in Ward 5.
Ward
right?
5.
Tell me about Ward 5.
Ward 5, beautiful area. Again, when we came here, we decided this is where we want to be. You grew up there.
Oh, yeah.
The fabulous neighborhoods that we've got, that we had, some established ones as well as new ones that were being developed or had been recently developed. Benville Place is not that old. Now we've got a whole bunch of them just popping up in our ward. So our ward is mainly community, mainly the neighborhoods. We've got a smattering of businesses that have popped up. Lost Pizza, Sports Cuts.
You got the vet clinic right there.
Correct.
Physical therapy. I think you probably have the locksmith. Those old businesses right there.
We've got that little area right there that I call them magnet stores, because that truly is what happens when you get a big box store that pops in like Walmart.
Yeah.
You get the stores that build up around it, because you're going there to Walmart, but hey, I
got some time. Let me run in here real quick.
I got to stop at GameStop and pick up a game for the kids or something.
Yeah.
So those magnet stores actually do attract people as well.
Speaking of GameStop, did you hear about the person in the training group, the student that made $150,000 off of the whole?
Oh, holy
Reddit?
smokes!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Good for him, right?
Good for him.
I was telling somebody, I really hope that individual had his phone, made the sale during school hours, and if he did, I want to be the one to write the paperwork so that I can frame it, because that's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you did this on government time, so that's government's money.
I'm not going that far, but still, like it's pretty amazing, honestly.
The funny thing about all that, and I know we're digressing, but
this is fine. This is how it's supposed to be. Yeah.
The funny thing about all of this Reddit and the investments and all this stuff in GameStop, all these people that are making money, they're going to realize what capital gains tax is next year.
I posted the same thing on Facebook. Said this time next year, a lot of people are going to learn about capital gains.
They're going to be very mad when they see their $100,000 that they made get dwindled down to about $55,000.
Yeah.
And Uncle Sam wants his little chunk.
Come on now, pay up.
Yeah, you owe me on this one. And they're relentless on that too. They're going to get their money.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, so what kind of issues are there in Ward 5?
Like any other neighborhoods, any other small communities that is traditionally the neighborhoods, you've got issues with roads, drainage. They want to make sure that their trash is picked up, on time, and the debris that they clear out of their yard is picked up by Public Works. Just the same things. We want to make sure that our people have accessibility to first responders, and we've got a fabulous system of first responders here in Ocean Springs. EMS, fire, and police. So there's no problem with regards to our accessibility to those. And we need to maintain that. We have to make sure that we keep in touch with those organizations that are out there, or the departments, and make sure that they're staffed properly, they're paid properly.
Sure. And Ocean Springs made a big commitment and really put the money where their mouth is when they decided to make the 47% pay increase for the local police.
Right.
So
the problem with that, and I do know this firsthand, because that was an avenue I was looking at when I did separate from the military. Police officers back then were not paid much at all. If I recall, I think at the time when I got out, it was like $18,000 start.
A year.
And that was probably half of what I was getting paid as an enlisted guy, even though, we were dirt poor too.
Yeah.
So there was just really no way that at that point in our time, in our lives, that we could afford to work for Ocean Springs and live in Ocean Springs.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at that time, average houses were running 120,000, something to that effect, in the newer neighborhoods, Heron Bayous.
Sure.
Somewhere around that at the time. So you just really couldn't afford that as a place for you to live. So they came here, they worked, and they left. And then they sought employment elsewhere, like Ocean Springs Police Department would go to Biloxi or Gulfport, where their pay was twice as much.
So we were footing the bill for training.
Absolutely.
And then people would do probably a minimum commitment if there is one. I'm not familiar with the process. And then they would pull chocks to go somewhere else.
Sure.
And likely the place they were living. See, that's the part that concerns me first and foremost. Obviously, there's a budget involved. It's they're agents of the city. But if you can't even pay these people enough to live in their own city, man, that strikes me as an ethical problem.
It is an issue.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I'm a very big proponent of community policing.
Yeah.
I believe that crime is not stopped. Crime's always going to be crime.
Sure.
Is deterred by having an officer in that area.
Yeah.
You see, now we're allowed to have take-home cars.
Yeah.
Way back in the day, there were no take-home cars. So you did not know that your next-door neighbor was a police officer, unless, of course, he stopped by and picked up his dinner while he was out on patrol. You didn't know that. So now we've got our officers are able to take cars home. They're parked in their driveway. People know that there's law enforcement in the area.
And that's a bigger deal than I think people even realize themselves. I read an article years ago, and, it was a study about criminality, small, break-ins, stuff like that. And they were comparing the U.S. versus Australia, and it was basically an article about deterrence. So in Australia, they don't have guns. In the U.S., they do, right? So they would interview people in jails in Australia and ask them basically their process. And one of the things that was noteworthy was the amount of time they would scope out a house that they were going to break into. And it would be down hours, maybe a day or two in Australia. In the U.S., other than a small percentage of just impulsive drug-fueled breaking and entering, it'd be days, weeks that they would scope out a house because they wanted to make sure that nobody was there that could potentially shoot them.
Sure.
And what the article theorized was that it's probably more effective, whether you believe it or not, to have a sign that says this house protected by the Second Amendment than it is to have an ADT security system sign. Whether or not you believe in it, because it says something about the individuals that are in the house.
Right.
And it was a really interesting perspective. And so for me, I think that's what having a police car does within your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Is it says this house, first of all, that house is protected by the Second Amendment because somebody's got a gun in that house.
Right.
But more importantly, here's a person that's an authority, an agent of the law that is oathed to serve and protect random people within the community and their property.
Right. In our state, you should assume that the person is armed.
Yeah.
There should be that assumption already. No matter what your plans are, what your intentions are, you should assume that person has a weapon.
Yeah, and plus I like the idea of deterrence, and I like deterrence in the way that we used to describe the nuclear triad in the military, and it was expressed as a multiplication problem, and it was deterrence equals capability times will times perception. Do you actually have the capability? Okay. Are you willing? Okay. Are you perceived to be both capable and willing?
Right.
And the reason it's important as a multiplication problem is that if any factor is zero, deterrence equals zero.
Correct. Yeah.
So you have to have all three.
If they recognize the weakness, then that's where you exploit your opponent.
Sure.
The art of war.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you talked about roads. Now, within Ward 5, there's both asphalt and concrete roads.
Correct.
How do you manage those? Because I think only one is budgeted for repair, right?
For total repair.
Okay.
For asphalt, it's a very easy fix.
Yeah.
Our neighborhood was asphalt.
Heron Bayou.
Correct.
Yeah.
Magnolia Bayou, Bienville Place.
Bienville Place is a good example. Yeah.
Really good example of this. The road system was poured by the contractor, was created by the contractor that developed that area. And when the contractor turned over the neighborhood to the neighborhood association, it's now theirs. The city will maintain the roads. Well, the city's not maintaining those roads. They're falling apart. There's holes. There's gaps. There's crumbling concrete. Concrete is doing what concrete does when it has a lot of traffic on it and it gets wet and it's puddled and things like that. Or the underneath structure of the concrete is not supporting it any longer. I noticed this myself with a pool in my backyard. We had our concrete pad that was washed out from underneath. We had like a 4-foot gap of nothing underneath our pad when we took the pool out. And we were just astounded that there was that much of a gap between the concrete and, what was 4 feet down earth.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff happens underneath our roads. So how do we fix it? Well, the concrete roads, you have to go in and fill it with concrete. I think that there's other ways to do that as well. You dig out the old concrete instead of just pouring new concrete on top of it, because now you're putting good concrete on bad concrete that's still crumbling underneath.
Yeah, it's the issue. It's still the foundation, which is the actual problem. Sure, right. That makes sense.
So you dig out up underneath it, you pull out, you fill it in, you pack it down, and then you pour new concrete down.
Right.
Those are the two areas that we think I think that we have the biggest issue with. Our current Board of Aldermen have not gone in and maintained those roads very well. And I recognize this after having shoulder surgery, driving through those neighborhoods and feeling the jarring in my shoulder. There was times when I told my wife, I can't do this. You got to go another way, or you have to weave around these potholes or these bumps in the road.
And if that's what you're feeling, I mean, imagine the people within your ward that are in these older neighborhoods that bought earlier, and they're getting up there in age, and they're having to drive along these roads every day.
Right, and to compound all that, we had a speed bump put in our neighborhood. This is where it all started, Brian.
In Heron Bayou?
Oh,
yeah. I drove through there recently.
This is where it all started with me. I was a perfectly happy citizen of Ocean Springs. Life was great.
Life still is great.
It is still great. I got a great job. I've got no pressure. Well, when I was just an instructor, I had no pressure with regards to my job, my daily operations. I showed up to work at 6. I left at 4, and that was it. There was nothing to worry about after that point, but relaxation, spending time with my family, whatever I wanted to do. Well, they put a speed bump in my neighborhood. Now, most people would look at that and say, well, that's a good deterrent to speeding. No, it's not.
No.
Now, I've got statistics, I've got nationwide reports, things that suggest it's the exact opposite. Yes, they're gonna do the speed to get to that bump. They're gonna stop,
go over it slowly,
and then they're gonna gun it. So you're really not deterring anything. What you're doing is you're destroying people's vehicles. Those people like myself who had shoulder surgery, I had to numerous times was thinking, stop this car, let me get out, and I'll catch you on the other side of that hump, because it's jarring. So I've got neighbors that have complained about physical issues of going over that bump. Not only that, but a lot of things that aren't considered when people put in when neighborhoods put in these speed bumps. It slows down first responders. Imagine an ambulance coming in there. You've got a cardiac event going on at your house, and that ambulance has to cross over that speed bump. Now, most people would say, oh, that's only, a couple of seconds. Look, we're talking about a cardiac event. A couple of seconds.
Where life is measured in seconds.
Is exactly how life is measured.
Yeah.
That could be the big difference. And I've talked to the EMS folks, and they said, yes, we have to come to a complete stop. There's no way to do this other than taking it at like a half a mile an hour.
Yeah.
To get over that hump. And then once the back end of the bus is over the hump, then they can continue in on their emergency.
Yeah.
So imagine that with EMS, with fire. Imagine you've got somebody that broke into your home, and the police department has those precious seconds that are shaved off their response time.
Yeah. Traffic
humps don't work. They just don't work. So that's where it all started. That's
okay.
The lack of response from my alderman at the time. As a motorcycle rider, you can only imagine the pleasure that I felt riding over that thing with a motorcycle.
I don't think that's the word you actually want to use.
No, we'll open with sarcasm and end with sarcasm on that. There's no pleasure involved at all, because you can't hit it at what you would consider a safe speed, and a motorcycle cannot travel very slow safely. The whole object of having a motorcycle on two wheels is to have a steady speed. So the first hump that they put in had a gap in the middle. Well, somebody complained about cars doing half of the car going through the gap and the other going over the hump. So they brought this monstrosity of a speed hump that covered the whole street. Motorcycles can't even go around in the ditch or in the little gap.
Yeah, I think because the yards are up, right?
The actual yards are up a little bit, but they went so far into it, there's just not enough gap for a good-sized motorcycle. Now, a bicycle, sure, no problem.
No issue there, yeah.
But a full-size motorcycle, there's just not enough gap for them to circumvent that hump on the sides.
Yeah.
So you have to go over it. So that's where it all started, is the lack of response. What I have seen since that time is there's just a total lack of response on anything in this ward. The issue of roads.
Okay.
I've talked to people. How long has this road looked like this? It's been there for at least 4 years. I mean, that's one thing that I'll hear, at least 4 years. I know that we had the benefit of having Heron Bayou repaved.
Yeah.
Since I've been there. It's starting to show wear. And we've had to patch things, and you know as well as I do, patches, they work for a minute.
Very, very short-term fix.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's infrastructure issues occurring in our neighborhoods that aren't being addressed. And I think the problem is the current alderman has a full-time job and is worried more about his partnership in his full-time job than he is his community. And that's interesting, because you and I have chatted about this, and I've talked with people that I respect as well that have told me the approach on this. I'm at an age where I've had a good life. I built up a good nest egg. I paid for my house a long time ago. So imagine the freedom that you have when you pay off that type of I've got a house that I can live in. I got to pay my taxes, sure. But other than that, I don't have $1,000 mortgage hanging over my head. So that has helped get me where I'm at right now.
Sure.
My wife and I have both spent more than 20 years in civil service. So we're eligible for retirement. And I say that to get to this. I have the ability to be a full-time representative for my community. And I'm not talking about just Ward 5. I'm talking about the city as well. The county has their meetings. The Board of Supervisors for Jackson County meets during the daytime. If somebody is more worried about their career or their partnership or their full-time job, they're not going to take the time out to go and voice their opinions at the Board of Supervisors at Jackson County during the daytime. They're more worried about hustling the buck.
Sure.
And I get it, because I did that for 20 years. My whole life was consumed for, billing. So I understand the necessity for that. Believe me, that's how we paid for the house. That's how we paid for our cars. But having a full-time representative, besides the mayor, okay, the mayor's full-time.
Right.
But our Board of Aldermen are not. Their responsibility is to show up to a meeting, and from what I see from the last 4 years of minutes, they vote pretty much lockstep. And I have it at good authority. Now we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
They're pretty much lockstep.
Gotcha.
But we'll talk about the backdoor conversations.
Sure. We can
segue into that.
Well, let's go another direction first.
All right.
I'll say that I definitely see the value of having somebody full time. For all the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, obviously, if for nothing else, being 100% available to citizens during the working hours of the day when those phone calls can be the most productive that they make to you and you make to people that can solve their problems?
When is our public works working?
Oh, during the day, during
business hours.
Business hours, yeah.
So here's the thing, and people don't understand the importance of face-to-face conversation that you have with somebody. I do. I understand that face-to-face is a lot more important than a phone call or an email.
This is part of the reason we're doing this. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. and I learned this a long time ago when we were teaching customer service classes. We learned that the people in the drive-through don't care enough to come inside to have that face-to-face conversation. They're in too much of a hurry. Mm-hmm. So in customer service, the mindset at the time when we were teaching these classes, and it makes sense, the person that comes to you, that takes time out of their day to come to you, is your most valued customer.
Sure.
The text message, the impersonal mail, the letter, mm-hmm. From the post office, very impersonal. They're not taking the time. They're taking time to write something out or type it or whatever, but they're not taking the time to come see you face to face, to see the emotion, that there is. So, in the communities, we've got issues that Public Works has to address. Well, they're getting their marching orders through an email or maybe a phone call.
Sure.
Maybe a text message. Mm-hmm. And what kind of follow-up are we having at that point? Here's my mindset on this. We have an issue that needs to be addressed. We get it addressed. We make it known. Mm-hmm. We find out what the problem is and the solution. Because if just giving me a problem doesn't help anything, we have to have a solution as well.
Yeah.
I've got a hole in my yard or in the road that needs to be fixed. Mm-hmm. Okay? We make that known to Public Works. Now, my job as a full-time representative is to go down and make that face-to-face conversation with Public Works. Hey, how soon can we get this done? Well, we're going to put it on the schedule for this day or this time frame or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of interaction that you would have face-to-face.
Right.
In a face-to-face conversation, I can say, are you sure you're going to be able to get it in at that time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So this from reading people that you can tell whether they're just telling you what you want to hear.
Sure. You can take advantage of the full range of your own perceptive abilities.
So then I go back to my constituents, the people that I represent. I'm not a leader. I'm not a city leader. I'm not a city father or anything. I'm a representative of my ward. Yeah. And that's the mindset that I have with regards to being in this position. Mm-hmm. So as a representative, I go back to that person that raised that concern, and I say, I personally talk to Public Works and give them the whole drawdown on their problem. This is the solution. At this point in time, they tell me that they're going to be able to fix it. Yeah. Not only am I going to do that, I'm going to follow up.
Sure.
I'm going to be down there as often as I need to talk to those people that are important and make the decisions to get these functions done, get these things done.
Right. And it does seem like a lot of work, but again, if you're somebody that's going to be there full time, you're maximizing your available time to be able to do those things. There's no other, 40-hour week distraction or more that's keeping you from addressing those issues and seeing them through as well.
Correct. Yeah. So. There's no ability, like I said, when you're running a full-time job, mm-hmm. there's really no ability to meet those people that you need to meet on their time.
Yeah. Well, we talked about roads, so let's get out of Ward 5 a bit and let's talk about traffic issues around the city.
Ooh, man, isn't traffic fun in Ocean Springs?
I don't know.
That's a open sarcasm.
Sure.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, I remember driving in Ocean Springs, coming from Heron Bayou, going to the old high school on Government in front of Patalos, and I don't recall it being that much of a problem, and I don't know when it happened, but of course I was younger then. Right. My worldview and understanding has changed dramatically.
Right.
So I'm definitely seeing the problems of early in the morning, everybody trying to get out of the city, in the afternoon everyone trying to come into the city. On weekends when there's an event, it is hectic.
Yes.
So what's the problem? What can be done about it?
So interesting that you mentioned traffic, because that's been another one of those nightmares that I've had. Mentioned numerous times to my elected official about traffic, and here's the problem, here's the solution. Well, it's always passed off to MDOT. And I get this. MDOT owns Highway 90. MDOT does not own Government Street.
Okay.
The city of Ocean Springs does. Government Street is now Highway 90 light. If you ever go down Government Street during the daytime, these are people that are trying to avoid traffic lights on 90 because they are miserable. Oh my goodness, going to work at 5:30 in the morning. You sit at a red light and there's no traffic crossing onto the highway, and you're wondering, why in the world am I sitting here on this red light? Well, because for one, I'm a law-abiding citizen, and that red light tells me I have to stop. But everything within me is saying, run that light, because you're going to be waiting another 30 seconds for that light to turn green.
Yeah, the lights in East Biloxi are just as bad.
Abysmal.
Yeah,
abysmal.
Yeah, just as bad.
But the city of Biloxi can manage those traffic lights. Those signals. I've seen they've got their own little traffic department. So that's the difference between Ocean Springs, the size of Ocean Springs, the size of Biloxi. They have their own traffic areas. They can go in and do that. I guess they have permission. I don't know. Maybe they manage the equipment.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
I've had a unique experience of being outside of this area, and seeing communities, seeing larger cities, and the way that they study traffic. They have people that go to universities to learn how to study traffic and the flow of human beings.
Yeah.
City of Denver in 1980, when I moved there for a period of time. Actually chasing my wife to get her to marry me.
Sure.
I got to see synchronized lights for the first time. And most people won't understand the beauty of having the ability to travel, 4 or 5 miles on a city street at the correct speed limit, and you're flowing through the traffic lights. As long as you are doing the speed limit, you will flow through those traffic lights for, an infinite amount of time. It's just the way it's set up. Now, the study goes, Ocean Springs, for example. Ocean Springs people go west in the morning.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah, we're leaving the city to go to work, and that would be in Biloxi or Keesler or wherever it is outside of Ocean Springs.
There are a number of people that go east to go to say the shipyards. Correct. But Ocean Springs being a mostly affluent place, most of the affluent jobs seem to be west.
That's correct.
That's what you're getting at.
And for the most part, those people that are going to the shipyard, and I used to work out at the naval station, so I know the traffic and how it flows as well. They get there earlier than not anyway, because they want that front row parking so they can leave at the end of the day.
Yeah, they're leaving at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So
absolutely,
it's probably not that much of a
it's not that much of a chore. Yeah. It's not hectic. Well, synchronized lights and traffic studies go this way. You got a computer that runs this system, and they watch the traffic flow and the way things are during certain points in time. So as I was telling you earlier, in the morning going west, the lights would be synchronized to be green at 45 miles an hour to the bridge. Ocean Springs Bridge, that's our boundaries. So somebody from our neighborhood, for example, would get in wherever they come on Highway 90, whether it be through the park or wherever. Yeah. Because there's several on points for us, for our ward. At that point, they may have a red light, but the next one, if they're doing the flow properly, if they're synchronized properly, they will be able to flow right out of Ocean Springs with a green light at every intersection. Okay. I mean, it sounds like a great concept. It works. Yeah. So why can't we have that? That I don't know. And it's been a situation here in Ocean Springs for decades. We've had MDOT do traffic studies for decades. This situation is just not on the shoulders of this current administration. I want to make that perfectly clear right now. This current administration really doesn't have a whole lot to do with situations that we're being addressed right now. This current administration is a status quo administration. They've done the mayor's done great things, but the rest of it is just kind of, well, we'll just go along to get along.
Sure.
In most cases.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's things we'll talk about that
right.
that just didn't work in their favor. But the traffic itself, the study also suggests that if you can do this at this point in time, taking traffic west, then the same thing can be on the opposite when the traffic's coming back to Ocean Springs from Biloxi, from Keesler, from those areas.
Yeah.
And I know that you've been out there in front of Masano's in the afternoon, and you're going, oh my God, I just got hit by the light at Krispy Kreme, Martin Luther King, and now I'm sitting in front of Masano's. Oh, tacos. I might go into Aztecas right now and just get me some street tacos and let this mess calm down, because that light's turned red.
Right.
And then you've got the light that goes to the school administrative area. You've got people that are cutting around by the end zone to avoid all this traffic, and they're causing the issue as well because those lights aren't allowing traffic to flow. Oh my goodness! So you're happy, everything's great. You get through that light, you're stopped in front of Castaways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you got a nice little clean sail until you get to the stadium. The stadium light usually is not that big of an issue, and I'm using the analogy of coming through this way.
Yeah.
That the stadium's light, it's not really that much of an issue because it's not set to be red for very long.
There's not a whole lot of crossing traffic there either.
Correct. Correct. So now you get to the Fort Bayou Estates.
Okay. You're going to wait at that one.
You're going to wait.
Yeah.
And guess what you're going to get into next?
Well, the big Ocean Springs Road intersection.
Yes.
So.
And that there's
which has improved. Like that used to look completely different back in the day, back when Fox Texaco was there.
Right.
But yeah, it's gotten better for sure. But I do think the lack of intelligent traffic lighting.
Traffic management is an art. It is a skill that people, like I said, they go to school to learn traffic management. And if we can get the right person in the right place to say, you know what? That's easy to solve. All we got to do is put in a circuit box, a computer, and these lights would then do what they're supposed to.
And you've got a unique understanding that I think other candidates may not have. I haven't talked to all of them. Working in a cyber career field, you can understand how these things work with each other and can complement one another, and then also maybe how possible it actually is. Larger cities actually have traffic management systems themselves where they've got all the traffic cameras, and they're following traffic. And these are what you would see on the morning traffic report. Hey, we've got an intersection where an accident has occurred at 57 and 90. Sure. You might want to avoid that by going down Old Spanish Trail. That's the kind of things that larger cities have available to them. We don't have that luxury. We really don't need that. Yeah. But for all intents and purposes, but we can use the knowledge that they have to better the flow of our traffic. Sure. That's the problem that I see with some of the situations that we're facing in our city is we're afraid to go out and find those people that are experts or those cities that have dealt with the same thing that we have and benchmark from them. Okay. We always point at cities and say we want to look like that. We want the foot traffic to be like Fairhope. We want that small home type feel. But we don't want to go to the larger cities and say, how did you solve your traffic issues? Yeah. Or how do you keep Florida, for example, go to Florida. How do you keep your roads from crumbling in, 4 years after you build them? Right, and which is probably the right place to go in Florida, especially the Panhandle. Yeah. Okay, well, so let's move towards from traffic to say how do we make the city more business friendly from the point that they enter the city.
Which way are we coming in from?
Oh, pick one. I'm not sure there's much you can do without annexing all the way up through St. Martin off of Washington Avenue. So we can stick primarily, maybe start with West Ocean Springs and then talk about East Ocean Springs, which is a good segue into another discussion.
Yeah, because we've got 3 corridors coming into our city. Well, unless you come in by boat, and then you've got an inviting corridor through our sound, but you've got 3 drivable corridors in. One from Biloxi, crossing nice bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just get real.
Yeah.
That bridge, hats off to the powers that were in place at the time.
Connie Moran and her administration. Yeah.
They fought for something other than ba-bump, ba-bump.
Right.
and everybody that's been here before Katrina knows
exactly
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That bridge no longer has a draw span, so we no longer have people waiting for our industrious shrimping industry to get out and come back in. We don't have to wait for that anymore. So you come in from Biloxi. The first thing you see is a beautiful yacht club over here on the right-hand side. Manicured area, it's walking path. You see people walking on the bridge. So the invitation is there for people coming in from that side of the city. That's where our city begins.
Yeah.
We have our beautiful beach over here on the right-hand side that people can glance over and go, yeah, that's pretty nice, and it's not as crowded as those beaches in Gulfport and Biloxi. So that might be a pretty nice place to bring my family on a Saturday or Sunday.
Sure.
So coming a little bit further into Ocean Springs, you're invited, at the intersection of Washington and 90. We got this beautiful pillar that symbolizes everything that's going on in Ocean Springs. They've got banners that are attached for any event that's coming up, so you know what's going on, and that ushers you into downtown. So our downtown is a beautiful area. It's award-winning. It's known nationwide in tourist magazines.
For sure.
People come here for downtown Ocean Springs.
It's certainly the biggest economic driver for the city. It's probably the most well-known thing about Ocean Springs.
Right. So we're getting this advertisement in tourist magazines to, hey, this is the best place to go to on a weekend, that kind of thing. That's money. That's money coming into our city. Now, some of those people might come in here and go, man, this is amazing. Start researching the taxes of how much I would have to pay to live here. Wow, this really is an affordable community to live in. So that's one way of coming in. That's people coming in from I-110, from the Keesler area, where you would consider, maybe they're here for a casino trip or something.
Yeah.
And we got 609. You growing up in this area, 609 used to be nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
You had Gulf Hills, and that was pretty much it.
There was a gas station or two along that route. There was absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You had the communities that were there. They're longtime established communities from the 60s. The developments that are there, Windsor Park, Espana Woods. They've been there for decades. They're older houses. So it's primarily residential, but they got a Walmart neighborhood store now.
Yeah.
They've got things growing up along that corridor. Why? Because the people are there. Because the people are there and they're driving the business to be there for them. There's no other reason why those stores would be there if the people weren't going to them. So yes, our opportunity does exist. If we plan on expanding our city, if we want that additional tax base, if we want to grow further than where we are, that's one corridor we're going to have to explore. What type of opposition we'll get is yet to be determined. I know at one point during my earlier times here, Johnny Beck, who used to own a lot of car shops here in the area, I guess he was in the St. Martin area, threatened to annex and create their own city to prevent D'Iberville from crossing the county line into St. Martin and annexing those areas, because D'Iberville's landlocked too.
Yeah.
Biloxi, they've locked D'Iberville in. There's no other way for D'Iberville to grow other than to the east, and that's crossing county line, which is kind of like a gentleman's high five. We won't cross it. But these guys, they kind of formed a neighborhood coalition and said, if you're threatening to do this, then we're going to incorporate so that you can't incorporate us.
Right.
Poses a lot of different problems because D'Iberville itself did that, and they didn't have the infrastructure to support it, so they had to rely on the county for police and fire protection at the time too, which cost them money out of their tax base. Another story.
Yeah.
So that's our opportunity from one side of Ocean Springs. The other side of Ocean Springs, wow, we've got Gaucher right there at the 57 line. That's where you enter Gaucher. They have pretty much the same situation that we have on that corridor. There's nothing there. There's no development. There's no activity.
Yeah, they've got Shell Landing, the Sportsplex there, and that's it.
Right. Well, the Sportsplex is ours.
Well, there's one on 90 east.
The soccer. Yes, where the county shelter is.
Shelter is.
Animal shelter. Yes. Yeah, you got that. You got the gas station right there. And on our side of on Ocean Springs side of the intersection, you got St. Paul Church.
Yeah.
Go up a little bit further, you've got our Sportsplex, where people come regionally to play sports there. It's a beautiful area. If you've never been out there to see just how well our Parks and Recs department takes care of that, you're missing out on a jewel. That thing is it's nice.
Yeah.
Underutilized. For sure. Now, in the day of COVID, the world of COVID that we have right
everything's
now,
underutilized.
Everything is underutilized.
Yeah.
But we have a potential, because of people coming to our city for just that, to have a little bit more in that area. Because the question I ask is, where do they go to eat? In between matches, in between games.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of them go to the Shed. That seems to be the low-hanging fruit, which is out of Ocean Springs.
It is
right?
out of Ocean Springs.
So there's been, I guess, that faux place that opened up across from it in that small shopping center. But the point is, the closest, probably most likely places wouldn't exclude Ocean Springs.
They certainly do not include Ocean Springs, and the situation is it's not good and it's not bad, because these are athletes, these are students or kids coming in here to play a game. Their parents aren't going to hang out here after hours in Ocean Springs. So the family, it's a family-friendly thing is what they're looking for. They want something that they can get in, they can have a nice meal, and off they go.
Right.
We don't have anything to offer. We got food trucks now. Our food trucks are all over the place, and if you haven't enjoyed some of these food trucks,
they're amazing. Yeah,
you're missing out, folks. You just got to give these guys a try. Some of these guys are amazing at their craft. Why not have them out there? Why not invite them out there to provide something to those that are using our Sportsplex? Have something that is going to give the city of Ocean Springs something back.
Yeah.
But that whole area is just ripe for development. And I've said it before, at this point, at this juncture, we only have one opportunity to get it right. If we don't, and we end up getting somebody in here that as soon as the tax abatement's done, they pop smoke and they've left us with a concrete mess. That's the problem that we would be facing. We have one opportunity to make it right.
Sure. So I've got a couple questions to that. First of all, what does East Ocean Springs look like then? Because I think when we talk about developing East Ocean Springs, the fear is that it's going to look like D'Iberville, like on Sangani. Yeah,
and I've said that before. Imagine what that place would look like if Dr. Sangani had owned that corner section of Jackson County. Highway 57 to Highway 90 into Ocean Springs. Imagine what that area would have looked like.
Yeah.
Now, it's not a bad thing, but the problem with developments like that is you got a lot of tax abatements. You're getting sales tax. That's pretty much all you're going to get.
Right. But a lot of those stores, too, the larger ones that would be described as maybe anchor stores, those are big franchises that also like franchises have a habit of taking money out of a city, not injecting that much money into the city because they're relying on external pre-negotiated suppliers, logistics lines, so on and so forth. Whereas, say, a local business that's in that area is sourcing things most likely locally, using
Absolutely.
local drivers, local suppliers. So on the one hand, it's like, well, we obviously to spur development, we'd want an anchor store that's unique to the area, that speaks to the area, but at what cost?
You'll see that as far as my vision. Look, I have a visionary look at that area itself. I would like to see something come in that is not available for 90 miles north, southeast. Well, there's no south. Yeah. Northwest or east.
I mean, it's still true. I mean,
Yeah.
not going to find it.
I'm not going to find anything out on.
Literally, if your goal is to find something 90 miles south, unless it's on Chandelier, you ain't finding it.
Right.
You know?
So that would be what I would want to attract as the magnet store for that area. What it is, I don't know, because there's so many rules that this state has on so many things. There's a stranglehold on
Alcohol is a big one. Yeah,
that's
it's a
the
big one.
You have the ability. Everybody says let's bring in a Whole Foods. Whole Foods is not interested in Ocean Springs. We don't fit their mold. We found this out during our Leadership Jackson County class that they have their mindset on where they put their stores, and they have their demographics already figured out.
Yeah.
Ocean Springs doesn't fit their demographics, and not at this point in time.
And you said that's Whole Foods or World Market? Okay,
Whole Foods. World Market. That's.
I've heard that World Market is one of those stores that is ready, in the ejection seat, ready to, pull the lever and come out here.
Yeah, but that's not.
But the alcohol.
That's not a draw. World Market's not a draw.
You don't think?
You're not going to get. No, I've seen.
It's an affluent store.
It is.
Yeah.
I've seen them. They're not an anchor. The magnet store for development around them.
Okay.
They show up when other people are developing.
Okay.
We're talking about things like Trader Joe's, Whole Foods. Those are attractors that spur development around them.
Sure.
Walmart is another great example, but we already have the Walmart.
Already have that one.
So
yeah.
we're certainly not going to build another Walmart.
I've heard maybe like a sporting goods store, but those are kind of a dime a dozen. You've got Academy and Dick's and Sangani.
Right.
So
the Aldi, the discussion on Aldi is another one. That's again, they have their transportation already figured out and how to get things in and out of their stores, but that would spur activity. And I know that I'm going to coin a phrase that I hear from a really good friend of mine. Activity brings activity. And right now what we see is there's a little bit of development going on right now in East Ocean Springs. I believe it's an apartment complex being developed back there. So that's activity. What are those people going to do once they move into that place?
Yeah, well, the people that built the inlet, I think the investors for the inlet are the same people that are building that complex.
Right.
And so I imagine it's going to have the same sort of format where you're going to have businesses below. And
right,
so,
and that's what we hope.
Yeah.
So
but the issue is not creating business space. The issue is creating businesses that can sustain and thrive in that area.
Yes.
That's my concern.
That would be a visionary concern as well. Our vision plan for the city hasn't been addressed in years. And everybody that's been here longer than 10 days or even 10 years for that matter, that's all we've heard is East Ocean Springs. Every administration that comes in talks about how we're going to develop East Ocean Springs. We need to develop East Ocean Springs. Wow. We got a Tractor Supply. That's pretty much all I've seen in the last forever.
Well, you could put a Dollar General there in East Ocean Springs because I think the nearest one is at least more than 100 yards away.
Right. I think I would rather not see something like that.
It's in West Ocean Springs.
It is.
Right as you come over the bridge. By the way, that building does not look like it's going to be a Dollar General. It looks a lot bigger. It doesn't. Have you driven by and seen the carcass out there?
I've
It's interesting.
I'm
curious to see what it looks like.
I hope that it is an inviting structure for our city.
Do you have faith that the city does enough to make sure that buildings close to the entrances or businesses that come in, that they do give some sort of feel of Ocean Springs?
So I think that our planning commission does a good job.
Okay.
I think that they have their fingers on the pulse. They know what Ocean Springs. They got a vision for Ocean Springs. This is the things that we'd like to see here. And when something's presented to them, they look at it and they go, well, that might be better somewhere else, not here in downtown. I don't think they were given that full opportunity with a Dollar General. And the conversations that I've had so far with people that have a little bit of knowledge with regards to that property is, well, the property owner gets to do what they want to do. Is that really the way that we're going to actually poise our city? Just let the property owner do what they want to do. We have codes that we have to follow. We have a vision of our city that we have to adhere to because we want our city to look a certain way. We want that demeanor to when you walk into our city, this is what we are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the essence of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to cheapen it with a building that, a cinder block building, which it's not. Don't get me wrong. It's starting to have a good appearance, good bones, good structure.
Right.
But a Dollar General, wow, that just doesn't say I'm in, the top tourist spot in Mississippi.
Yeah.
When I'm welcomed by a Dollar General.
A souvenir shop does.
Yeah, no, it doesn't either. No, the souvenir shops are good for the beach.
Right.
And that's not going to happen on East Beach or, that's not going to happen on our beaches.
No, not at all.
We're not going to see something like that.
Not at all. Not at all. There's no issue with that at all.
We'll let them handle it over in Harrison County.
Perfect. Okay, so we talked again about East Ocean Springs, and so if we can to develop East Ocean Springs and really all the way up to through 57, we might have to annex some areas. Is that something that you're into, and where do we stop annexing?
We stop when we look at that area and say there's nothing we can do with it, or that it adds no value to what our vision is for expansion. Sunplex, bad. Annexing Sunplex would not benefit the city of Ocean Springs.
Why?
It's Jackson County Economic Development Area. So Jackson County covers that. That's theirs. Annexing it would be fought and battled in courts for years and years. And on top of it all, there's probably abatements on their taxes for decades. You don't build in an area like that.
Are you aware of any specifically, or just
no? Just in general,
it's likely that
because it's an economic development area. We were given kind of the wherewithals when we were going through Leadership Jackson County of what these actually are. They're designed to bring in businesses. And the businesses grow and develop over time. They're not burdened by unnecessary taxes. They have everything that they need. They've got fiber connections for internet, phones. They have a massive electrical structures set up there for just that development area. So their whole goal is to bring business into that area. And it's an industrial area as well. You've got a mixture of a whole bunch of different things in that area. If you drive around, it is pretty unique.
Yeah, for sure.
You have corporate offices for the Deschers, for McDonald's. You've got Chempro that handles herbicide for government contracts. And you've got the bus barn for the OTARD bus, and you've got Ingalls has an area out there for their engineers, and you've got the retirement center, the assisted living facilities.
Yeah.
And amongst other things, you've got woodworking shops. There's all kinds of things out there.
That's true.
So those areas are developed to bring in businesses, let them get their feet anchored firmly, and then maybe move. Unless they want to stay there, but that's the whole goal is for those development areas to help you develop a new business or a new company in the area, make a little bit of money so that you get some capital built up and possibly moving out from there. So that area is kind of, I would look at it as off limits. It just wouldn't.
All of it? Like there's
No, just the Sunplex area.
Sunplex. So
Right.
you would, because obviously Gaucher owns east of 57, but west of 57 seems. Do you think that that's viable to annex? And then where do you stop? Do you stop at the interstate? Do you include the interstate?
See, those gentleman agreements that cities make or that communities make, they go by geographical things.
Okay.
And I-10 would be one of those geographical things that people would look at. Well, we don't want Ocean Springs going up any further than I-10 because, well, there's a golf course and all this stuff. And
We've got the shed, though.
you got the shed. Yeah, you got the shed. Is it worth annexing for the shed? That would be the question to ask. What
I would
benefit?
I would say having the ability to develop economically around the interstate might be
Yes.
hugely beneficial. And so
But
that's
you're going to have just two corners of it. The other side obviously doesn't belong to us. And Bienville Orthopedic, when they built their huge complex over there, they knew that was going to be outside of the reach of county and city or cities. That they developed it with that intended.
right.
I would have liked to have seen that built on Highway 90 close to our hospital.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason why why they did not look at us for that.
Yeah.
Because
Curious.
we have that whole complex there by Singing River Hospital that has developed into medical facilities, different specialists, things like that. Why not further develop that or bring in businesses like that that could have a tie to the hospital or, that has that hospital feel, the medical professional feel.
Yeah.
That is what I see that area building up as, that little intersection right there, Ocean Springs Road with the hospital area. I see that growing more into the medical field, more medical community. Imagine, like I said, Bienville Orthopedic, that big structure that they built, and then the MRI center that was attached to it being in that area.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Okay, well, what about annexing, say, where the high school is? Because the high school currently sits out of Ocean Springs, and there's a lot of development occurring around there. Do we extend annexing out there?
I think we have to for faith's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, as you just mentioned, this is our city high school. I realize that our county neighbors, Gulf Park Estates, those unincorporated areas, are part of our school district, and I respect that. It is a school district. We're not busing our students or students that live in Gulf Park Estates up to Van Cleve, where the county school is. They're part of our school district. So the argument about having that in the city limits versus not in the city limits, it's really kind of a wash, because you've got a lot of protected land in between what we have at the middle school all along Old Spanish Trail to where the high school is. So that protected land, can't touch it.
Right, but surely there's a way you can draw the lines to it.
North of that area, sure, those and right around in the Fontainebleau area, they're blowing up. They're housing developments, and these are really
nice houses
being built up in that area. So that would be an asset to the city of Ocean Springs, and I believe that would be Ward 6 as well. So I'm sure that the alderman there has a good idea what needs to be done for that ward itself to spur that development that is occurring right now, because you've got the development going on the Gaucher side as well as the Ocean Springs side. Catching the high school into it, interesting question, because how far do we go, and then where do we stop?
Yeah.
And
that's a good question.
And is it necessary to have that inside the city lines, the city limits? Is it necessary?
You're talking about the high school?
Right. So those are all things that you'd have to look at. As far as what benefit does it add to the city to have just that little chunk of land?
Well, how would you answer that? What's the benefit to having that?
Right now, I would say no. That it other than saving face, your high school doesn't exist in your city limits. That's the only drawback that I see where it's at, because it was put there for a purpose. That land was developed or is set aside for schools. So there's no benefit financially. We'll just go because at a business sense, that's what it all comes down to. There's no benefit financially for the city to annex that spot of land.
Okay. Gotcha. Do you think that it's a case where maybe the financial or the business sense should be set aside for the sort of saving face or the intangible just value of having a high school within your city limits?
I would say at that point when you're looking at a situation like that, I'd say we might want to table this conversation, because again, coming down and where does it meet us financially?
Sure. Okay.
Other than, like I said, other than our high school doesn't exist inside our city limits, I don't see that being it's not a distractor. It doesn't distract from our city, because it's a fabulous high school.
Yeah.
I mean,
Ocean Springs University, you mean?
Yeah. You went to the old high school.
Yeah.
This is amazing. I've seen the videos from inside. I haven't had the pleasure of being able to go in because, well, COVID, and then I don't have any students in there, so who's this old creeper coming through here? I've really got no business to go in there. It's not my place.
Well, let me ask you this: and this is the last question I'll ask, and about annexing in that area. With the business sense, the question is, makes good business sense as long as the outcome is income, right?
Yes.
So if you're incorporating also within the annexed area those neighborhoods, those high value neighborhoods into that annexation, don't the property taxes and everything make up for that and help it make business sense?
Property taxes in Ocean Springs, it's the lowest tax that we have on the coast. You know this.
Well, why does it feel so expensive then?
It's school tax.
Okay.
We're very proud of that school, and rightly so.
Yeah, it's an award-winning school.
It absolutely is. None of our schools are subpar, or even par for that matter. They're above par.
Yeah,
they're all award-winning.
I don't think any of them are below like an excellent rating in any sort of metric that you have.
Correct.
Actually.
So we have and folks, when they get, like the military guys, when they get orders to come to the Gulf Coast to Keesler, they're asking the question like, "Where's the best school system?"
Yeah, it's Ocean Springs, and then the follow-up is, "But you
Long
don't pay
Beach.
for it."
Oh, you're going to pay for it. Yeah. There's two school systems that people point to. Just two of them. Biloxi has a great new campus, paid for by casino money, obviously. The good tax money that they've got flowing in there. But they still have an issue on the peninsula with their school systems. Their schools are run down. They're old. They're dilapidated. And Biloxi has focused their economic development north of the bay anyway. So they've abandoned the old peninsula area, which is a sad situation when you drive through there, and you do on a daily basis too. Yeah. Very, very sad to see that go the way it is. Our school system, on the other hand, is award-winning. People want to come here and live in Ocean Springs for that school system.
Yeah.
So they're paying the school tax if they buy a home, and that's a critical thing to it as well. Or if they're not buying a home, if they're military, we get federal money that comes in as a result of that as well. So the school system's infused with money one way or another. So again, another major attractor for people to come to our city is our award-winning, very well-develed educational system.
Sure. I went there. Obviously, your kids did. So we can certainly attest to that. Well, let's move from the high school. Maybe talk about more of the internal things, within the city. So, I think we can start maybe with some discussion about executive session.
Oh.
And for those who don't know, executive session is a kind of closed door meeting that's had, and oftentimes the reason is because the topic itself might subject the city to future litigation. And so in an effort to avoid that, they will go behind closed doors and they will have discussions about city issues.
And they have these A lot.
Okay. Is it really that abnormal? I mean, if the city's trying to do it to protect themselves legally, what's the harm in having an executive session?
Okay. First of all, let's divide the executive session into one, city business. I've got an employee issue that I need to discuss. That's not for public record because it's an employee. It's an HR issue. So that would be one reason why you would have an executive session, to break away from the normal session of city business. Okay, now it's time to talk about disciplinary issues with employees, whether we're going to hire or fire, what the salary is, even though after that discussion, salary is public records because they're city employees. So that is all public record as well. Anything else, if it involves the fear of litigation, then why are you not talking about it in public? If you're going to get our city sued, why are you hiding behind a door? That's a good question, is it not?
Yeah.
If it's going to cost litigation to our city, that's public business. It's coming out of my pocket. That money is coming out of my pocket, the taxes that I pay to this city. The people that I hope to represent, I hope that they're hopping mad about the amount of executive sessions and the backdoor deals that have occurred in this city. It's disheartening to know that over the course of the years, not just this administration, but even in the past, this administration has taken it to new heights with their executive closed-door sessions. And there's a lot of discussion about that on Facebook.
Sure.
Social media is just blowing up on this.
Right.
And that's actually one of the discussions that's coming out with all the candidates in the different wards, as well as the mayoral candidates. They feel that the executive session has probably been abused for fear of things happening. If we discuss this in public, then maybe somebody will get upset and sue us. Well, they're going to sue you anyway.
Yeah, and that's a perspective that I've heard about this. I mean, if you're going into executive session to avoid litigation and you come out and make a decision that's going to lead to litigation anyway, what's the point of going into executive session?
If it's going to cost a taxpayer $1, it better be out in the open. That's the way I look at it. And I am not.
But even that, like an increase in salary costs the taxpayers dollars.
Sure, but I'm talking about as far as the backdoor decisions, the deals, let's make arrangements before the Board of Alderman meeting to go ahead and have like-minded discussions on how this stuff is going to work. And if you do this, I'll do this. That's politics. And Mayor Dobson, if you listen to his podcast,
yeah, he's got a new called the Control. Is that what
Control?
The Control, yeah.
I listened to them all last night.
Okay.
And
early review here.
It is worthy of listening to because this young man. First of all, I love this guy. He is
good dude.
He is a fabulous individual. I've really grown accustomed to asking him for wisdom with regards to my run. In fact, when I picked up the paperwork, I stopped in his office and said, "Am I making a mistake?" And he said, "Why are you running?" And I gave him some of my reasoning, and he says, "No, I don't think you're making a mistake then, because you're doing it all for the right reasons." He is calling out those people that are doing it because they want to be in power, and that's where I draw the line. I don't want to be in power. I want to represent. I
like that.
There's a big difference between going into a department, talking to a department head. I'll throw it just out in general. Talking to a department head, and the approach is, there's a big difference between this approach. Do you know who I am?
Sure.
and hey, what can I do to get this resolved?
Right.
There's a big difference between that. And,
sure.
And
you're the latter.
I take that approach. Yes, yeah. I'm a facilitator. I've been trained in facilitation. Actually, the military paid for it too.
Sure.
So I've gone through all of this. I've also learned how to read people's body language.
Yeah.
And I sit at and I watch the Alderman meetings sometimes, and their body languages show disinterest.
Telling. Yeah, telling.
They're very telling. But anyway, Shay's podcasts expose a lot of things that have affected him, and I commend him for it. Some people are going to call it a scorched earth departure from Ocean Springs. I don't necessarily feel one way or another on that. He has the right to call out those things that has affected him personally. But I don't think that he's just throwing a grenade and walking away. I think he still has the best interest of our city, and this is his city too. He grew up here.
Sure.
In your era. So my son grew up with him.
Right.
I don't think that he wants to see anything happen bad to Ocean Springs. I just think that politics hurt him. How does that sound like a good explanation?
Yeah,
because
I wouldn't say that personally. I don't know that politics hurt him. I think that maybe politics. First of all, he wasn't inexperienced, and not to talk about Shay on this episode
Sure.
with you, but he's not an inexperienced person. He spent 10 years working on major political campaigns in the Midwest, so he's very much capable of playing a political game. Perhaps there was a little bit of naivety that politics could be as dirty as they were on some issues.
That's where I was going, because I've got the ability because with age comes wisdom, right?
Sure,
that's what they say. Sometimes with age comes stupidity, but I try to be the first rather than the latter.
Right.
We all make mistakes, but in this particular situation, with city politics being what they are and representing my people, I realize that I am not going to have 100% of everybody in Ward 5 behind me. I realize this because politically we're so polarized.
But does that change the way you do your job for Ward 5?
It does not.
Okay.
It does not whatsoever. In one iota, it does not at all. I don't care. I don't care what your political leanings are. It doesn't matter. My job is to represent you, regardless of whether you're a Green Party supporter, Libertarian, Republican, or Democrat, or none of the above, and just plain up independent. Regardless of your political affiliation or where you lean or where you vote, my job as a representative for Ward 5 is to represent each and every one of those households that is in that ward. And I take that challenge very seriously, because I can sit and listen to people talk politically. I've learned that there is no absolute right or absolute left.
Right.
There is no absolute with regards to your political place in the spectrum, because you change frequently. Everybody changes frequently. Most people, if they actually looked at themselves politically, would find themselves pretty much in the middle of everything.
When you have a conversation with somebody and actually talk about the real issue at length, you realize that you're more aligned. First of all, that you identify the same problem, and that's important. I think I had a conversation with an individual, Alan Rowe, who self-admittedly, he said, I'm farther left than what left is, and we could go farther left. Fine, whatever. At the end of it, he asked me, because, are you sure you lean right? I said, well, yeah, I mean, I agree that these problems exist. That's not the issue. It's just the mechanism to resolve them is where we have different perspectives.
But at the end of the day, if he were a homeowner in Ward 5 of Ocean Springs, does it matter where he sits politically when that road in front of his house is messed up?
0%.
None at all.
0%.
None at all. And first of all, again,
and that's the beauty of local politics, though.
That is.
Yeah.
But that's also some of the things that plague local politicians is we still have a tendency to play that game. Well, this is my party and that's your party, and there's really no room for that in the city.
It makes sense that happens, though, because the mass exposure of the way politics works is on the national scale where you play those games. That's what's so vile about it, in my opinion.
And it's filtered down into state politics, county politics.
We're following the leader on the political national scene, or the national political scene, rather.
And it has no value added to our community.
No, not at all. No. Not at all. Because I don't care. I don't care what the letter next to your name is. What's your issue? Great. Can I help you? Awesome. And again, personally, I think that communities are the best equipped to solve the problems of individuals of the community. The idea that some bureaucrat in Washington knows more about how to fix a problem than you have, than I do, is mindless.
It's senseless.
Yeah.
In my quest for this challenge, if I've had people ask me, well, how are you going to treat so-and-so because they supported your competitor? No different than I would somebody that supported me. My job is not to play favorites. My job is to represent.
Better yet, how do you treat your predecessor if you win?
Hey, the way I look at him, I've never had an opportunity to sit down with him in the first place. Mm-hmm. I hear that he smokes cigars and he likes to drink beer. Because I hear that he
That's
goes
part
to
and parcel to you.
So we can agree on the cigar thing. I would love to sit down and have a cigar with a gentleman and have a conversation.
Sure.
If I'm so blessed to beat him in this race, I would definitely reach back to him and say, how did you deal with these situations? Because the closed door sessions, the executive sessions, those are not public knowledge. The conversations that have occurred, the public doesn't know what's happened in there. So therefore, for a candidate trying to get into those positions, they've got an advantage because they've got that closed door session. So they know a lot more about this particular thing, and I'm not throwing any particular situation out at all, but they know more about this than we would, having sat in the Board of Alderman meetings.
Right.
As for the public discussion. So I would definitely. I'm not that type of guy. I'm not that type of guy. You a good leader, for lack of better terms, surrounds himself with great people, the people that know what needs to be done and how it's done. I believe that we see a person that has won a race should have the ability and the wherewithal to reach back to the previous administration and say, hey, what could we have done different?
Sure. How do we evolve now? Yeah.
Right, and there's a lot of conversation going on right now from an old alderman, McDonald, that's coming back into Ocean Springs and talking about a situation that's occurred out on the front beach. Because he was privy to the conversations, he now has that perspective from coming from the outside. I used to represent this ward for 24 years, so I know what it's like. I know what the discussions were on this. So here's my perspective of it.
Gotcha. Well, do you want to get into that? The issue on Front Beach that you're talking about? What is that?
It's called the Sands Development.
Okay.
And I've reached out to the developer. I want to sit down and have a conversation with him. Sure. We've heard some of the conversation from the opponents as well. They're very vocal, and I congratulate anybody that's vocal on their stand. They take a stand on something and they're very vocal and very passionate about it. I get that. I understand that. I'm not saying one's wrong, one's right at this point in time.
Yeah, you're just seeking out the objective facts here.
I'm in the discovery mode at this point.
Sure.
In my heart of hearts, I'm looking at this going, wow, this is right, this is wrong. But when it comes down to it, you have to make sure that everything was done with regards to this development. Okay, the Planning Commission approves it. The Planning Commission approved it, but did they approve this? Well, yes, they approved this. Well, then that's a done deal. It was approved. So what's the issue now? What is the problem hindering development?
So let's back up. So the issue is that an apartment complex that was there at one point is no longer there, and they're trying to build an apartment complex in that location.
The developer does not want an apartment complex.
Okay, but they want to build something there.
Yeah. So
and it's been approved by the city. So in any normal situation, the developer should be free to develop.
Right.
And yet development you're suggesting is not occurring. Yes.
Well, no, it's not. And there's lots of
why is that?
discussion on this. Let's just say there's a lot more to be discovered from an outside perspective.
Okay.
This goes beyond the 4 years of this administration. It pushes back even further because Katrina occurred during Mayor Moran's time here. So this situation started at Katrina when that apartment complex was demolished or beat up and then had to be demolished, and then it goes through the process of what do we want to do to develop this area from what it was. So this is years and years and years of talk, of litigation, of lawsuits, and nobody, unless you're one of the couple of parties that are involved in all this, nobody really knows the entire story.
Well,
so now we're starting to hear a little bit more about it.
What are the elements of the story? Because again, I assume the developer wants to build. The city seems, if by virtue of approving everything, they're okay with the development going up. So I couldn't imagine the developer suing the city or the city suing the developer, but those should be the only parties involved. Where are the lawsuits coming from?
They're coming from the people in that area that. Again, I'm not going to speculate too far on this.
Fair enough.
But from the people that are around that area that's getting ready to be developed, they're the ones that are filing lawsuit to stop the development.
Right.
So this is the mindset. This is the thing that I envision when I hear the developer's perspective of this conversation. He wants to develop 41 single homes in the fashion that you would see in Santa Rosa Island on 32A?
30A.
30A, sorry. 30A. Yep. I had it in my head, too.
You're good.
I remember it. 30A, that area, and my wife and I have enjoyed that area.
It's a great area.
Numerous times.
Yeah.
And we've actually looked at the real estate listings in there and were flabbergasted.
Yeah.
At what?
High priced.
High priced.
High priced.
That's an understatement. Because these houses are developed, single homes, but they're developed with maybe 4 or 5 feet in between each one of them. And they're built up for a purpose. You've got parking underneath, and then you live up stairs. So the footprint within your neighborhood is very small. You've got a road that takes you to your driveway, and then you go up from your driveway. How you create your home, elevator or stairs is up to you. But there's HOAs and all this stuff involved. Obviously, in 30A, if you go there, you'll see that.
Yeah, they're going to work hard to protect those home values for sure.
And the appearance of each one of them will, conform with this and so on and so forth. And that definitely keeps those property values at it, in my opinion, because 10 miles away from there, you got our land that is a fraction of the cost. Right. So the difference being is this area is now contained, and the property values are up there. Because this area is going to always have these amenities. They're always going to look this way. So therefore, it's not going to be a rundown. It's not going to be a rundown neighborhood. Right. We're going to maintain this. I see that as what this gentleman wishes for his development. I see that kind of passion, that kind of mindset when I listen to him. Again, I've just listened to his one-sided conversations with other interviewers and him talking on Facebook. I'd love to be able to talk to him and say, give us a little bit of ideas of what has happened.
Well, what can the city really do? I mean, if the city's not involved in the litigation because they've approved everything, and again, between the city and the individual, they're they're on the same page.
Yeah, it appears that way anyway.
It almost seems like the city is just sitting here, unfortunately, watching the spectacle play out.
Yeah, it appears that way. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure.
We're being speculative about it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what the Board of Aldermen have done in the past, as far as, hey, what can we do to get this thing done?
Yeah.
There's a lot to come into play when you've got somebody that owns property that is upset about something that's going on there. Mm-hmm. You have to have a facilitator.
Sure.
And in most cases, we don't even worry about facilitators. We got a litigator. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to get away from that. We need to sit down like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
We need to sit down and have this conversation before we pull our lawyers into this.
Right.
And I think that's the problem that we've had here in our city for a long time, is we have a tendency to do things, again, closed doors, not listening to the city, the people that are put into place, the planning commission, our lawyers, not listening to them and making decisions that are contrary to what they've suggested.
Yeah, when I hear you describe all this, it seems almost as if you're describing a city that's scared to collaborate with the citizens.
That's sad. That to me, that's.
Do you believe that that's the case, or is that a little too pointed?
I think that may be a little too pointed.
Yeah.
But it may not be too far off. And the reason I say it may not be too far off is because you've got people that are more concerned with their careers than they are the management of their city.
Such is the nature of politics.
Such is the nature of life when you're dealing with a situation like a city, the Board of Aldermen. That it's not a full-time position. It is not designed to be the full-time position. But there are certain aspects of city business that requires somebody to have their finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
And again, the first part of our conversation goes right back to, I offer full-time representation.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of that would happen, a lot less litigation when we have communications issues rather than letting a communication issue go to a spat, the spat go to a fight, the fight go to litigation. Let's get in there beforehand.
Sure.
Let's have that conversation and find out why can this not be brought further? Why is this development being stopped? What is it specifically? These are the conversations that should have had before litigation. What is it specifically that we could have done as a city and as a developer and as a person that has interest already in this area? What can we do to make sure that this development meets or exceeds your expectations as a neighbor?
Yeah. That sounds reasonable. Well, we were talking about Front Beach, and I think that's a pretty good segue here into one of the things I'd like to talk about, and that's trees. Kind of got to touch on trees if we're talking about Ocean Springs. And from my perspective, the trees in Ocean Springs are one of the best kept secrets of the town. These beautiful sprawling oaks that line the roads, that seem to be carved out of nature and allow us to live among them.
We built a park around one downtown. Marshall Park has a beautiful tree right there in that park area, and it's kind of the thing that people see when they go to that park.
Yeah,
I think our trees are a gift. That we have to cherish. We shouldn't take them for granted, because it's the charm, it's the allure that our guests, the visitors to Ocean Springs, come to expect. They want the canopy. They want to see the canopy on Washington. When they go past the office and further down in towards where Knuckleheads is, the canopy that's being developed in there. They want to see that. They want to see that sprawling canopy. I'm not really sure whether that type of canopy could occur on Government Street, like the previous administration had envisioned by planting those trees. I'm really not sure whether that was the best source or best use of resources.
Yeah.
But to talk about our trees, we have to talk about a couple of things that have occurred that I've been made aware of. Is we had people that actually had a place in city politics or in the city board of aldermen that said this is a protected tree and it shouldn't be harmed.
Are you talking about the tree committee, or the arborist? Because we had an arborist at one time, and then they got cut from the team, so to speak, and then we got rid of the tree committee.
Right. Mm-hmm. Is that really is that making us good stewards of what nature has provided to us by not having somebody that can look at a perspective of that tree that's been there longer than we have been here, for most of us, put it that way. You look at that tree and go, it's been here 110 years, 115 years. It'll be here another 200 if we leave it alone. We can develop around those pieces of art, because they really are. They're magnificent trees for a purpose, and they live down here and they thrive down here. I mean, sometimes defiantly to some of these storms that have rolled through us.
Sure.
You know, so they have a place in our lives, and I think that we need to balance that with development. To simply go in someplace and clear cut an entire lot, slap down concrete, build a business, and then once tax abatement's done, you know, there it is. You got a concrete lot.
Well, I think
what happened to the trees?
Sure. I think on a lot of those issues, those are easier to come by. But say, for example, if somebody had a piece of property and there were trees that were preventing them from exercising their right, you know, to have a home of their choosing on that home. How do we deal with that? How do we strike a balance, and maybe balance not the right word, but have an equilibrium of say, these are your rights, but also look, you're coming to Ocean Springs for a reason, so you need to appreciate that there's a touch of Ocean Springs that you have to build within. Right.
There is a balance. You have to balance development versus the old growth that exists. And if we don't do that, then what are we going to end up with? We're going to end up with a bunch of clear-cut neighborhoods that I've planted trees in my yard. I've gone to the land trust. I've gone to some of these the tree handouts, and I've gotten some of these trees, and I've let them grow in my yard, and I want them to grow in my yard because, well, for one, that it's part of being a good owner of property. But I also realize that if you are a land owner or a property owner, and there may be a magnolia, for example, and I'm just using that right straight out of my mind. There's a magnolia right slap in the middle of that lot that you want to grow or you want to build your house on, and there's nothing that can be done. Either that tree comes out, or you can't build there. I just can't build there. There's no way that I can meet the HOA needs, if there is an HOA. Again, I'm just throwing all this stuff out there. Sure. There's no way that I can meet the needs of that community by building back further or up further or to either one of the sides of that tree. So at that point, you would have to look at that and say, okay, as a responsible property owner, what do you intend on doing once you remove this tree? And I'll give you a great example. The Beau Rivage. When they developed the Beau Rivage property, they brought in mature magnolia trees and lined that entire street with mature trees. Those things didn't grow from seedlings. Right. They paid a lot of money to get those trees transplanted from one place and brought into there to make it look like old growth on Highway 90. We have the same capabilities. Now, financially, it may be a little struggle, but if it's really worth that battle, you know, there's a way that we can do things. I do respect the rights of landowners, of homeowners. They have a right to do what they feel is necessary for their property and their home values. And sometimes you have to make that bad decision, like I've got a tree that's too close to my house and it's destroying the foundation. Sometimes you have to make that tough decision and say, your house is more valuable to you as a person. We're going to let you remove the tree, but please consider, working with a land trust or somebody, one of the arbor foundations, and planting some trees elsewhere. That's just being a good citizen. I'm not, by no means am I one of those people that go out and, that's going to hang from a tree if somebody's getting ready to cut it down, especially if it's on private property. But I do know that this old growth, man, it's been there longer than we have.
Yeah, and it's certainly got value that's tangible, as well as obviously just the feel of Ocean Springs as part of the intangible value of the trees themselves. What's the role of an alderman in telling somebody they can or can't remove a tree? Do you think? I
think that the role of the alderman would be to go and listen to the homeowner or the property owner's petition, as well as listen to those people that are probably more knowledgeable on that old growth or that neighborhood. So bringing back the tree committees. Even though it was non-binding, that they just made a recommendation, I still think that those people have a place in the conversation. Yeah. As a committee, they're bringing a perspective that's not necessarily from the homeowners or the government's perspective. They're bringing in, a third party. I think that's part of the conversation. Now, whether we agree with it or not, that's what happens.
Sure.
So okay. As an alderman, my job would be to listen to that person and maybe give some advice on whether this is a good approach. Because one, you got a problem, but what's our solution? Just because you got a problem, it doesn't mean that it's going to get solved without a solution. You have to have a solution. So let's look at this. Let's discuss it. Let's find out what we can do to either mitigate it or work around it, or, if we remove it, now what can we do to satisfy the people that have the best interest of the tree at mind and at heart? What can we do to satisfy them to say, okay, yes, I know I tore down this tree, but as a result of this, I'm going to do this and plant, whatever. I'm going to do this in return to help replenish, that resource for the future.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and start on government here, and we'll start with the Mary C. Now, the Mary C has kind of been a black eye a bit. The way it played out is, in my opinion, analogous to your family airing out their dirty laundry and, for people to see on Facebook, rather than, solving it amongst their family members. And I'm torn, because after reading the Gulf Live article, which I think takes a pretty objective view of it, it almost seems like the city should have been involved a little earlier, because it wasn't as profitable as maybe it's being described when you look at the balance sheet. But at the same time, I'm not sure that the city is the right body to have the influence that it currently has on it. And I'm concerned because some of the programs are programs that compete with local businesses. Yeah. Whether intended or not, it's the same thing. Yeah. So
the Mary C is a unique part of Ocean Springs. To see that building, nobody wants to see that building go in disrepair, because we've seen it already. Yeah. And when it was turned over for a cultural center, it improved vastly from a dilapidated old school building, that nobody really even knew what to do with. Maybe we'll tear it down and build a new school, a new Tacony. I'm glad they didn't do that. Sure. Because there's some charm to that building. Yeah. I've been in a few times. My wife has a friend that has had exhibits in there. I think that they've done a magnificent job of allowing local artists to demonstrate, their talents. I think it was underutilized is one of the issues. But if you have a situation like the Mary C prior to all of the hoopla, if it's running in the red, what can you do to bring it out of that? What are the steps necessary to do that? I've heard a lot of conversations about bringing in people from outside for week-long classes, bringing in professors from universities, from colleges, from arts.
You're good.
From other arts areas to teach seminars, to teach a couple of weeks of class, or maybe a college class, here on the coast. For art students. I've heard a lot of conversations about that, and I think that would be a very wise utilization of that facility. Not only could these students learn, but they could also volunteer and help manage and maintain that property while they're here learning. Why not?
Like a work study kind of deal?
Why not?
That's the first time I heard that. That's interesting.
I'm just throwing things around.
Sure.
There's other things that we can do for that. I don't believe the city has the place to manage something like that.
I'll say this: it doesn't strike me as likely that you'd have somebody who was somebody in construction had an interest in art as well.
No,
but that's hyperbolic in nature. I'm purely kidding around.
Right. It's a sarcastic.
Right.
And I get it, but I don't disagree, because there are people that can admire the arts, and then there's people that can participate in the arts. Now, your construction worker, he participates in his own form of art.
Yeah.
So what's art? Art is in the eye of the beholder. That's the way I've seen.
Expression of self. Yeah.
That's exactly what I've seen in the past. I would look at this and go, that's interesting. That's a piece of art. Not really my flair, not something that I would, want.
Look, I did it, and I have no idea what it is.
I'm just picking at this.
Yeah.
I've done that when I've gone into some of these exhibits. And,
sure.
And I go there because my wife and I are supporting her friend. But we're enjoying it as well. It's a cultural center. We're talking to other people.
There's an experience associated with it.
There is.
Sure.
There is. Now, whether the situation was handled properly or not, we weren't there. For one, the door was closed.
Right, and that's what I was going to bring up. It was unfortunately another example of like executive session.
So the issue is who do you believe and who don't you believe? And I'm not in the position to point any fingers at anybody at this point in time. I think both of them failed each other. How does that sound? Does that sound like somebody sitting from the outside going, yeah, we had a situation that occurred. You both failed each other. And you can take it personally if you want. It wasn't a personal attack on your integrity or the actions that you took. It is what it is. You both failed each other. Now, what do we do to get over this? Otherwise, that building is going to fall to crap.
Yeah.
Because, for one, the city has no idea how to manage an art center. Only the artists do. Put the artists back in there and let them run that show. That's what that was put in place for in the first place. Now let's figure out how we can have them make it profitable. What can we do? Because first of all, if people come here from outside, they're bringing their money from the outside and they're spending it in Ocean Springs. Ocean Springs is going to make money by these festivals or arts exhibits, anything that occurs in that area or on the grounds.
Marketed properly, yeah.
They're going to buy lunch.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 7% or 7 plus 2%.
Yeah, but it's a question of volume. Yeah.
So the money's coming in. Whether the building or the people that are running the show is making it profitable, that's something that you got to look at and say, is it worth having this run in the red for a moment until we can get it built up to a place where people are coming here from around the globe to participate in things that are occurring here, or do we just let it go to crap?
Let me challenge you with a question, okay? The Mary C is a pretty important staple of Ocean Springs. Is it not worth it to allow it to run in the red to some degree?
To some degree, like I said, let it take it and mature.
Like if it ran 10% over budget forever, is that okay?
Well, again, when the city's going to have to decide whether that is within a reasonable amount with regards to that facility. Do enough people come in and contribute to our city infrastructure, whether it be dining or drinking or buying things within our city for sales tax? Because just because that building is not generating financial stability like that doesn't mean that the people that are coming here aren't spending money here. So there's a trade-off that you have to look at. You got to be very objective when you look at that trade-off. If I've got 100 people coming here from Tennessee, use that as an example, 100 people from Tennessee coming here to enjoy an event at the Mary C that is 3 days long. Well, they're not staying in Ocean Springs, not that many people, because our downtown area, the new development that we have for the little condo hotels that we've got that are setting up down there, there's not enough space for that volume of people. Let's break it down a little bit. We got 10 artsy guys that are coming down from Tennessee for a 3-day seminar. Where are they going to eat dinner?
I mean, I imagine downtown. Chances
are likely it's going to be downtown. They're going to go to the Walter Anderson Museum while they're here as well. They're going to go across the bay to the Ore Museum. They're going to do what they do while they're here. They're going to spend money. So just because a system itself is not profitable doesn't mean that money or the people that are coming to that facility aren't bringing profit to the area. That's what I'm really getting down to. Just because something's not generating the money to sustain itself doesn't mean that the people that are using it are not contributing elsewhere.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, let's continue to talk about downtown and talk about the issue with, say, parking downtown, because that's always been a frustration. You know? And then we'll segue from that and talk about golf carts, because golf carts may have alleviated some of them, but the proliferation of golf carts, which I don't think anybody really anticipated, might have made traffic a little worse.
Yeah, in some cases, potentially. Downtown. I was just talking with somebody last night about downtown Ocean Springs. Coming here in '94, there were a couple of things downtown, but at night, when the street lights came on, if they were even functioning on Government Street, there was no activity going on downtown.
Yeah,
most of the shops that were downtown were daytime operators. Tato Nut, they weren't 24/7. Henrietta's, they weren't 24/7. Lovelace Drugs, they closed the doors as well, and there goes the soda fountain as well. The things that were down there shut down at dark. So the vision of somebody in the past to revitalize downtown has brought us to where we're at today. We got traffic problems. Everybody's got traffic problems. One of the big issues that we had was putting those trees along the side of the road.
Yeah, that certainly didn't help.
That didn't help one bit. Now, I say a lot of times we only have one opportunity before we make a mistake. That opportunity has gone past us. I'm not going to go in there with a chainsaw and cut those trees down and tear up that road to make parking.
I don't know that it would help anyway.
I'm still not going to do that. Yeah. I'm not a proponent of that. I think there's better spaces available to us on Government Street for parking.
Okay.
We tend to use it more for a walking area anyway, and I think that was what the vision of that area was for nightlife was. Well, it's going to be a walking area. We have an entertainment district.
Now, what are you talking about with that walking area?
We got wide soft sidewalks.
Okay.
A lot wider than normal. We've got got space to walk amongst each other. During festivals, we shut the streets down.
Yeah.
And we allow vendors to set up in the middle of the street, so we have more walking going on. Where are these guys parking? You know, they're coming in droves for these events.
They're shuttling them in too.
They are, exactly. So I know that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense now, but if you look at some of the areas that we have that are downtown, if there's some things that we could do to help those areas that already have parking, maybe expand their parking, whether it be up or even out. Just exploring different avenues. We've got the parking area over by Val's. The old Swingster building, a lot of people know it as the old Lutheran building during Katrina, where the volunteers were staying. That whole area right there it has the potential to have the ability to have a garage. And I'm not talking about just an ugly structure that sits out here and people go by and go, why did they let you do this? Because we only have one opportunity when you start looking at something like that. So you look at a situation where you have the ability to maybe have shops on the bottom floor.
Right.
Green space on the top, you know, protected so that people aren't jumping off of it, but you could have a small park there on the top where people could actually go sit back and relax for a little bit, enjoy the sun.
Yeah. That sounds interesting.
But they're not cheap. So the situation comes down to who's going to do it. If the city does it, then guess what happens when the city puts that much money into something?
Yeah, taxes go up.
Taxes go up. So here we go from, oh, man, here's this dude that's talking about raising taxes. Now, I'm the last person that you want to talk to about raising taxes. I'm one of the, no, we're taxed enough already if you really want to get down to it. I love what Shay said about that. We have enough taxes coming out of our pockets for other things. But if we want our downtown to be vital, if we want our downtown to grow, that's probably the avenue that we're going to have to look at. That's the thing that we're going to have to find is parking. And I'm not going to go in there and say, Orrin, you're going to have to lose your shop here because we need to expand parking back here, and Little Bakery's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boots and Spurs. Now we're tearing you down, and we're going to expand that parking lot. I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to allow it to be done to, you know, somebody that doesn't want it to happen. But I think when you start looking at things like the garage that I was just talking about, just for ideas going around.
Which I'm told we have the money for right now.
We do, and we have to be safe with we've got to protect what we've got in our pockets. You do the same thing with your budget. You want to protect a little bit of money just in case something happens.
Well, no, I mean like the BP money.
Oh, BP money. That
money is apparently we have that at this point.
We got to look at using and utilizing that for our city. We absolutely.
I'm told it's specifically going to go to a parking garage.
Well, then I hope at this point when they design that parking garage that they take everything into account about the location of it, and what it's going to represent, and not just put in some concrete monstrosity that you would see at the casinos.
Well, and so I'll revisit a previous point we had where do you trust the building and planning commission? Because I don't think anything that goes downtown is going to be non-compliant with the vision of Ocean Springs.
I can guarantee you, there's people like Fred Moran. There's the founding fathers, if you will, the longtime residents of downtown that have the passion for revitalizing downtown that brought it to where it is now. Right. They're not going to allow that.
No, not at all. I think honestly there's concern for what the parking garage would look like, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think nothing is going to go up that doesn't have a full representation of the city. And plus, the location is going to be probably catty corner to the Mary C. You're going to be able to see the Mary C from that lot.
Yeah, so why would you destroy the view of this beautiful, old, magnificent building with a concrete hunk of junk.
Right.
So another thing that comes to mind when I was discussing this was that spurns other activity as well.
Yeah.
Somebody may not want to walk downtown from the parking garage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you've got a young, enterprising young gentleman or lady that wants to start a business of shuttling people,
via golf carts or something, I could see that.
Golf cart limo.
Yeah.
They do this over in Europe a lot. They have taxi shares, they have ride shares, buses that you can hop on and go from one point to another.
I'll give you another one. I spent a lot of time in Madison and Milwaukee in Wisconsin, and they're great places. But they have these, and these are not unique to any one place, but a guy on a bicycle that has 2, 3, 4 seats, behind, just kind of making laps through there. I mean, I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, and his calves are, solid
outrageous.
brick. Yeah.
Outrageous. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
But they have. That is potential for striving or bringing about more business as well. Mm-hmm. So how do we handle the traffic? Making it one way is not right now feasible.
Mm-hmm. Why?
For one, where do you go from Government Street? So I know the question in some of the conversations that I've had with other people is, my opinion, if you're going to make it one way, you make it one way going westbound towards Washington. Mm-hmm. Where do we go from there?
Well, unless you want to saturate residential
and I don't want to
areas,
do that.
well, then you have to go to 90.
So now we've got to worry about the train. Mm-hmm. If the train is there, if the train's coming through, then we're impeding the flow of traffic. Shooting them down Porter, that's a possibility, and that may spur more business
down there.
Porter as well. But what I fear is if they take a left-hand turn on Washington, is they're going to cut back through that neighborhood to come back to Government at the end over by Mary C. or wherever. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to see that because, for one, those roads aren't built for that. Those roads are narrow enough as it is to add that much increased traffic.
There's parks there. You run the risk of
more potentials of issues.
Coney's there,
So going left is not really an issue. Mm-hmm. Going right, if you got the train there, you got a problem as well. Well, you got DeSoto. DeSoto, most people look at that and go, well, that's just an alleyway. It is just an alleyway. It does not have the ability to be that area that would allow you to loop back to Government Street. There's no space. There's not enough space there. You're going into residential area as well when you start looking at DeSoto coming back over around behind Phoenicia's. Lord is my help. All of that. It doesn't have the infrastructure to sustain that type of traffic either. So you're stuck going on 90, and that's right now. I just don't see that being. I think if somebody has to, if they're looking for parking, if you will, if they're looking for parking and they're hitting 90 because they couldn't find any parking on Government being one way, they're not doing a loop back coming back to Martin Luther King.
Well, I also think that it exacerbates the problem to 90 if the issue's a train too, because those people that are trying to come back through have to wait on the train on the other end, which now they'll be waiting on 90 in order to meet that train. Yeah, there's no good solution for a one-way situation. But what if you could make it to where, with the parking garage, and maybe you have this sort of economic activity where you have somebody doing the shuttle with golf carts or with bikes, what have you, like bike carriers, and make downtown either pedestrian, bike, or golf cart traffic only.
There's been some discussion about that as well, that people have talked to me about maybe on a Friday evening shutting it down to pedestrian traffic only from a certain point to a certain point. I just don't see that businesses in that area being that excited about shutting down Government. Mm-hmm. But that would certainly be something that you would want their input on as well. Yeah, I mean, there's several entities that you would want to discuss this with, the business owners, the Chamber of Commerce, and the other people in planning and traffic control, the chief of police, things like that. How are we going to prevent people from driving down there? Are we going to put these barricades up that go
Sure.
up on Friday nights? Now, let's just say you got a bicycle that can get through that barricade. Are we going to ticket the bicyclist for riding down in a pedestrian-only area?
Personally, I kind of think if it were to work, well, in pedestrian-only areas, you do allow bikes. For whatever reason, that's considered pedestrian traffic. The issue would be the golf carts. Do you allow golf carts down there? Because, if there's only golf carts, I don't really see the problem in that either.
Shutting it down to vehicular traffic, allowing just golf carts, wow. Yeah, now you've got, regular motor operators upset at shop owners because they're not allowing them to park in front of their shops. I'm going to go elsewhere. Most
people can anyway because there's not enough traffic or
there's not enough parking.
So I don't like the marginal difference to me isn't that significant. The biggest problem that I've heard would be ADA compliance.
Exactly. I was just getting ready to bring that up.
Yeah. So, but then again, it's not like every parking spot in front of a store is a handicap parking spot. So people do walk, they do travel, and again, having the sort of microeconomic activity of having somebody that has a golf cart that moves people around might alleviate that too. But again, that's something that obviously has to be thought out better than some mindless moron like me. So another individual, when we were talking about parking in Ocean Springs, brought up a very interesting partnership that could occur. Okay.
The Villa has a huge parking lot right next to it. The Diocese of Biloxi manages the Villa, so therefore they would be the owner of that property. Mm-hmm. If the city could somehow convince them into a private venture of creating a parking garage that you can charge, users to use, that it would be a viable thing to offer the community, that they would make money on it. I think that would be a good venture to look at as well.
Sure.
Wouldn't cost us anything.
Right.
Just giving them the ability or the ability to actually expand that parking area up instead of, just what it is.
Right.
Giving them the ability to make some money as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just another option. Some of the different things that people do come up with, wow, that makes sense because that's right there where everybody wants to be anyway. So now not only do we have government traffic controlled a little bit more because people aren't fighting for, a spot on government, but you have the egress to Porter, the egress to 90, and even back through government from that parking spot. So it would just make sense to now bring in the conversation with somebody else, a third party, to convince them this would be good for you, good for Ocean Springs.
I gotcha. Okay. Well, Jeff, we've talked about quite a bit, and the last question I'll ask you before I kind of give you the floor here is what's your position here on a Chick-fil-A in Ocean Springs?
Wow. I would love to see a Chick-fil-A somewhere in Ocean Springs that makes sense.
Okay.
Throwing another fast food joint down on 90 right now, just to me, it doesn't make sense with traffic the way it is. And I'll justify that by saying, look at what we've got already at Popeyes from time to time. You've got people sitting out on 90 waiting to go through the drive-through.
You obviously have not had that chicken sandwich.
I have.
Oh, you have?
It's worth waiting for.
Well,
yes, it is worth waiting for.
But we're talking about God's chicken here.
We're talking about Chick-fil-A. Whether we would be in their demographics or not, that would be a good question to have with them. The next question would be, where would we want them? Not where they would want to be, but where we would want them, so that they were profitable, accessible, where it makes sense to put them. Everybody points at the old Kentucky Fried Chicken building, that this is, It's starting to be an eyesore. You know, the vermin, they're all over the place. Rats everywhere. But what could logically go there? You don't want Chick-fil-A next to Cane's. That just doesn't make sense.
No, you don't. Cane's doesn't want Chick-fil-A next to Cane's.
Well, I mean, as a city, as somebody looking at bringing or trying to get somebody to look at that property, I don't see that another chicken place is going to want to compete one way or another. Whether I'll smoke you and I'll close you and we'll just raise your building. Each one of them has a place. I think there's. Sure. If we can find that right spot for Chick-fil-A, heck yeah, let's bring them because they make a good breakfast sandwich.
Yeah, right.
I would like to see something like Taco Sombrero go into that area. I think that it's, even though Taco Bell is right there, both of them have an attraction. Taco Bell's not going to lose business. Taco Sombrero is going to gain business. But I want to see something go in that building.
Hold on now. I think you need to consult with Patrick before you make this decision because Patrick, he's a Taco Bell dude. He's a Taco Bell dude.
Yeah.
So I think you need to consult with your inner circle there.
When he's my confidant, but when he's down here, he will hit Taco Sombrero.
Oh man,
that's some good food.
He's not going to like that you said that on here.
Oh no, dude, you've eaten it, you know it.
Fair enough.
But that's the kind of things that you need to look at. What's a good fit where? There's so much potential for our city to see something just come in because you want something there doesn't make sense because you'd be looking at that going 2 years from now it's gone,
right?
And now what? We're right back to where we started.
Yeah,
we have to make wise decisions, and we have to talk to these companies and businesses that want to come in and be part of our community and put them in the right place.
Sure.
That's a fact.
And that makes sense to me. Well, Jeff, I mean, do you want to talk about anything else while we're here before we go? I mean, do you want to give a final kind of pitch? Or?
Yeah, I mean, there's the thing that I bring to the table. It's not unique. I've got a plethora of experience from being enlisted to customer service to supervising. Facilitation, things like this. That's just everything that I bring. The life skills that I have available to me. I'm 100% pro business. I'm transparent. Look, I know that there are some things that you can't be transparent about when you run the city, and that comes down to personnel issues. Everything else, if it's going to cost a taxpayer money in litigation, needs to be out in the open. I'm going to go back a step. A couple of boards of aldermen ago, a mayor ago, with Sycamore.
Okay.
I'm sure that you're aware of the situation because you were here during all that. That cost this city almost $1 million in lawsuits because the board at the time went against the city attorney, went against the law, and prevented this business from opening up where it was permitted to be opened. That's not the best use of our money. And if that was made in executive session, that was wrong. They should be sued as employees of the city for doing that, for causing that harm. It's irreparable damage. It really became national news. I remember seeing it on not only Good Morning America, ABC, but I saw it on Fox News and CNN at the time. It was a tremendous black eye to our city, and they went against everything that was being told to them. So transparency is important, especially when you're dealing with somebody's dollar.
Right.
I entrust you with my tax money. That means that they're putting a lot of faith in me. That's like giving somebody your car key. Hey, man, don't screw it up.
Right.
How often do you do that?
Oh, is that a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be rhetorical.
Right.
The rhetorical question is, I'm going to talk to my motorcycle friends. How often do you let somebody ride your motorcycle?
Now, let me tell you something. For those that don't know, people that ride motorcycles are on a different level of being particular about who sits on their motorcycle.
Oh, yeah. Just sitting on it, not riding it.
I'll tell you a story about that after this.
So just because I have a motorcycle, I understand that statement more than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the key to my motorcycle.
Yeah.
When I'm paying my taxes. I trust that
to elect you. Yeah.
I trust that you will be wise enough in your vision for our city and manage the city the way that I would like it done. And
you believe you're that person to do that?
Man, yeah, I'd like to think that I am. I mean, I'm not really sure what I'm getting into as far as the dirty side of the politics, because Shay talks about that a lot on his podcast. I'm not going to take it personal. I know that it's not a personal attack when something like that occurs. It's a political attack. So it's not anything against Jeffrey Mortenson. It's against Ward 5 Alderman.
Sure.
And that person could be anybody. It could be anybody. Just somebody's not going to be happy with that. I do want to make sure that I can represent everybody. I want to be able to offer understanding, facilitation, discussion, open dialogue. Man, I'm readily available to you. I'm there, and you call me, and I'm there. Let's find out what this problem is and come up with a solution. Because I don't believe that being an alderman stops when the Board of Aldermen meeting is adjourned. And I don't believe that my constituents or the people that are going to entrust me in that position expect to have to answer to a mailbox that's full, or maybe not answered for a day or two. Accessibility is something that I offer. Transparency, accessibility, full-time, compassion. How about that? You're not going to. I'm passionate about things that I do, but you're not going to find anybody that's less compassionate about anything than I am. I'm going to listen to both sides of something.
Sure.
There is no situation that I'm going to run into that I'm going to just take a total disinterest in.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm entrusted with as a representative. They entrust me with, I want you to listen to what's going on with my neighborhood. Yeah.
You don't strike me as very apathetic about things, so I don't think that that's going to be an issue for you. Jeff, I know you the least out of your family. Okay.
Yeah.
I know your wife. I know your sons, and I told you by virtue of knowing the family that you've been the patriarch that you've cultivated, the wonderful family that you have, the wonderful young men that you've produced within your family, it was a no-brainer that I want to talk to you, and that I expect you to do some great things for the city.
I appreciate that.
So we as citizens are lucky to have such a diverse, unique, and exceptional talent pool, and it's no surprise that you're a member of that.
It's a surprise to some. My wife is one of them. That she.
Oh well, come on, of course, yeah.
Do you really know what you're getting into? Well, honestly, no, but I know what I want to do.
Yeah.
And how does when I say that to her, she says, "You're going to be the best at what you do then."
Yeah.
And there's not going to be anybody that's going to fault you for doing your best.
Right.
I've always done things out in the open. I believe that the things that you do in the dark, that doesn't do anything good for anybody else. Those things that you do in secret.
They usually get brought to the light in a way that you can't control.
And it's like a wildfire at that point, and before you know it, the whole intent of having this discussion in secret is no longer there. It's been twisted to a point where it can no longer make sense.
Right.
So, raising my family the way I have, yes, they're fantastic young men. Mm-hmm. They're respectful of their neighborhoods that they live in, of the people that they deal with.
You didn't have to give them such a terrible football team to root for, though.
Well,
I mean,
actually, when you get down to it, I've got.
Trust me, I'm not ready for this conversation.
I've got one that is an Ohio State fan because he went to the university.
Well, he was also indoctrinated because you're an Ohio State fan too, right?
I've got the other one who is a fan of the team up north.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
So
yeah, Michigan, right?
I can't say that.
You can't say that?
I can't say that. It's a rivalry thing.
Is it tough for you to say? Can you spell it as an Ohio State fan?
Actually, I can say it very easily because my father's family, his entire family is from Michigan. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing when we have that discussion on football. It is a fun,
which I'm sure is chaotic. Yeah.
It's a fun rivalry. Yeah. It really is.
It's one of the old ones. Yeah,
it is. It is, and I enjoy that time every year. I banter with my father's family, and yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah, for sure.
It's nothing personal. If there's a Michigan transplant down here,
he said it.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about, the state, not the university. If you're a grad, we'll have a little friendly wager or something during that game to have a little levity. Makes sense. That's what the game's all about. It was not a rivalry between like the North and the South, in the Civil War. Yeah. It is more of a fun rivalry that has occurred. The history of it is amazing. Right. And the banter between the coaches has been amazing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To find out that these two coaches respected and loved one another, Bo and Woody, they cried. They talked to one another. It was amazing to see that friendship come out of that rivalry, because when that rivalry week occurs, it's like I would rather push my car across the state line than fill up my gas tank in Michigan.
Oh, fair enough. Well, look, Jeff, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. How can people get in touch with you?
It's several ways. I'm on Facebook. Okay. All you got to do is search Jeffrey Mortenson. I've got an email address. I've got a website. I've got campaign manager. I picked up a campaign manager as well to help me through some of the formalities. But yeah, Facebook, social media is the easiest way. I've got everything published there that, as far as getting a hold of me, I don't have a problem meeting somebody face to face. Honestly, folks, look, it's a pandemic, and you can attest to this. Where I work and what I do, I cannot subject myself to myself and the students that I come in contact with by going door to door and knocking on the doors and talking with people. And I don't want other people to feel uncomfortable with that as well. But I do have, I've got a vehicle, I got 2 feet, I've got a telephone, I've got all kinds of different means and ways for you to get a hold of me. I will come to your house. We'll stand out in your front yard. We'll sit 10 feet away from each other if you want. I can talk very loudly. I used to be in the military. I worked on the flight line, so I can speak very loudly, and I will. I would be more than happy to come talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime. Perfect. About this job, because I want to represent them, not the other way around. They're hiring me to do a job.
Right. And I'll put all that information on the website and the post as well, so people can see it. But Jeff, again, best of luck to you. Thanks for sitting down to chat with me.
It's been a pleasure.
I know, it's been a good time.
Yeah. This is actually the second time that we've had a conversation. Yeah. We sat and chatted at the cigar shop.
That's right.
For probably just about as much time.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's a time capsule in here.
It is.
So, yeah. But yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
That's it.
That was probably 2 hours.
I think that was more than 2 hours.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's okay. 2 hours, 22 minutes. Easy stuff.
But it does consume you when you're talking about these things that matter. Because you want people to know that, look, I am not apathetic to your cause at Mary C. O'Keefe.
Right.
You know, I'm not apathetic. I'm not one of those aldermen that are going, well, I don't care about that.
Yeah, for sure.
And